Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of virtual camp. I'm Liam Adams.
And I'm Michelle Eaton.
And we hope that you'll be joining us for our checking out the things that we have going on this week. Our third day is sort of more of a break, but there's still some cool features that you can check out. And we're definitely looking forward to seeing everybody for the rest of the week, and hope you've been enjoying the week so far.
So my question of the day today is, what is your favorite team competition?
Ooh, okay. So, Michelle's come up with some great team competitions over the years. My favorite team competition would definitely have to be the Friday relay, where we have to do, diving in the pool for the rings and, tossing the water balloons, going up the slip and slide, assembling the puzzle at the end. It's always such a crunch, even if someone fell way far behind it, usually teams can catch up by the puzzle time, and it comes down to the wire. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that one's probably one of my favorites too. It's a lot, it's basically like 10 games in one. And everyone always gives their best on the relay. And like you said, it doesn't matter who's, in the lead. The most athletic team may get to the puzzle first, but they're not necessarily always the ones to get the puzzle done first. And it's also a lot of fun watching people try to run up the slip and slide, barefoot and all the different things. And probably another one of my favorite ones is the sponge dodgeball, which we don't play every year, but that does tend to be a lot of fun with everyone wanting to throw the wet sponges, especially when we allow the campers to battle the counselors. That's pretty fun. So those are probably, my top two for sure. So today, you may not be able to play sponge dodgeball with your family, but maybe you could share with your family what your favorite team competition is. And if you're new to Camp Washington, then you can maybe be brainstorming some strategy on how to throw a wet sponge well for a sponge dodgeball or to compete in our relay, because we'll be able to do that next year in person. So we hope you all have a good day. Don't forget to watch your videos before our meeting. Well, we won't be having one tonight, but be watching our videos, because we'll have a chance to talk about those when we get back together on our live tomorrow. So y'all have a good day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Okay, so a recap from Monday and Tuesday. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego are taken into Babylon as slaves by King Nebuchadnezzar. They find favor with the leaders, even though they... Okay, so recap from yesterday. Daniel goes to the king after the king has decided that he will put all the wise men to death because they could not interpret his dream. And he wagers with the king that he can interpret his dream as long as he spares the lives of the wise men. He goes home, he prays with his friends, and that night has a dream given to him by God, and is able to go to the king the next day to give him an interpretation of his dream. The king then honors Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego for his ability to interpret dreams by giving them higher positions in his government. They're now leaders and seen to be very valuable men in the kingdom. So we're going to pick up with our next chapter.
Sometime after Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego began to serve in the court of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, the king had a golden statue of himself made. The massive 90-foot-tall statue stood as a monument to Nebuchadnezzar's power and greatness. The king ordered all the leaders of Babylon to come together for the dedication of the enormous idol. On the day of the dedication ceremony, all the leaders of Babylon gathered by the golden statue of King Nebuchadnezzar. A herald announced to the crowd that they were to bow down and worship the statue when the music began. Anyone who did not do as commanded would be thrown into a furnace of fire. So when the sound of music from the trumpets, harps, flutes, bagpipes, and all sorts of instruments was heard, everyone bowed down before the statue. Everyone, that is, except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. A group of the king's advisors noticed that these three young Jewish men did not bow down and worship the statue. Jealous of the power the king had bestowed on these exiles from Jerusalem, the advisors went to the king to tell him of the men's disobedience. When King Nebuchadnezzar heard that they refused to bow to the statue, he became furious. In a rage, he had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego brought to him to answer for their disobedience. He told them that if they continued to refuse to bow down and worship the statue, he would have them thrown into the furnace of fire. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego held to their faith. They told the king, "The God we serve will deliver us from the fiery furnace." King Nebuchadnezzar had heard enough. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than normal. His soldiers tied up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and led them to the furnace. As the doors of the furnace were opened, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in, the heat and flames overpowered the soldiers, and they died on the spot. King Nebuchadnezzar looked into the furnace, and to his amazement, he saw that the 3 young men were unharmed. Then the king noticed something even more amazing. In disbelief, he asked his advisors to confirm that there were supposed to be only 3 people in the fire. After his advisors agreed with him, the king said, "I see 4 men walking unhurt and unbound in the fire, and one of them looks like the Son of God." Nebuchadnezzar called for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the fire. He was so in awe of what he had seen, he praised the God of the 3 young men and declared that anyone who spoke against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be killed. The king said, "There is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." Then the king promoted the 3 young men to high positions in his kingdom.
So the king built a huge statue and decides to have it dedicated, and everyone has to come to this dedication. And once everyone gets there, they're told that they have to bow down before this statue and worship. Of course, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would have an issue with this because they weren't to worship any other gods. And so even though they served their king, they knew they shouldn't bow down before him, that God alone deserved that kind of worship and love and appreciation. And so they refused to bow down, knowing that the punishment for not doing it would be being thrown in to a fiery furnace. The king up to this point had really liked Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. They had found favor with the king. They had been raised up into positions of leadership. And so up to this point, the king had never had a reason to not really care for them. But the king was so angry that they refused to bow down, that he had the furnace turned up, 7 times its normal heat. So much so that when the guards put them in, just being that close to the furnace killed them on the spot. And the king was amazed because he looked in and he not only saw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego standing in the middle of the furnace, but he saw a 4th man. And when they came out of the furnace, they didn't even smell of smoke. So the king was really awed by this. And it really showed the king that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego served the real true God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were obedient and did what God would have them do, even knowing that it basically meant death to them. Can you think of a time when you were with people that were doing things that they shouldn't have done? that they were inviting you to take part in, and you had to make a choice as to whether you were going to do those things, or whether you were going to be obedient to your parents, or whether you were going to honor God with the decisions that you were making. Be mindful of what God wants us to do, and that we would be faithful like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were, to do the right thing.